You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back.
Hello and welcome back into my Wheelhouse. Today is November 5th. We are about a month into the NBA season. We have our
month in.
That's right. We have our post Red Sox celebration bliss still about us.
And we had like the cherry on the cake for all his JBJ fans last night when he finally got his Gold Glove after 6 years. Really, he got the trifecta: the MVP, ALCS, the World Series championship, and now he's on top of the world.
Of course,
it's awesome.
Of course,
he's
Mookie
paid the price to get there.
Of course, Mookie got his Gold Glove too. And
Yes, 3 in a row.
Ian Kinsler got one, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, he didn't even make the Boston papers, Ian Kinsler, because he's not really
that's
and then
pretty
after
wild.
that era too, it's kind of odd that he turns up with the
So
they
we
had a guy in the National. No, was it third baseman in the American League? They got his 6th in a row, or was it?
we saw them have their victory tour going to the Milwaukee game at Boston Garden and also to the Pats in Gillette against the Packers. Both motivating victories on both ends, so that was very exciting. Hopefully, both the Celtics and the Patriots can follow up soon. So we had a very exciting week. Multiple 50-point games. Klay Thompson broke a 3-point record. Let's see where we land with some.
Yeah, spin that wheel.
Let's do it.
Got all good stuff. We're in the thick of it now.
All right, that's the West bubble. So the Western Conference is a little bit more murky than the Eastern Conference. I wanted to discuss the teams in the middle morass, so the ones that you don't consider playoff locks and the ones you don't consider lottery locks. So how far your playoff locks can be up to you, but I think it's commonly agreed that lottery locks are Phoenix, Sacramento, and Dallas, despite a hot start from Sacramento.
You got to say, despite the hot start, but I agree with that. I really only have 2 teams on it, and that's Dallas and Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, because of how things are going, but obviously I'm saying Memphis and Sacramento and even the LA Clippers, they're in the top 8 right now, but you can't
So
really...
I have playoff locks as Golden State, Denver, and Utah, but that's not what we're here to do. I have my bubble. I broke it down into 4 tiers. I have
4 tiers.
have
4 tiers in the West?
Yeah, 4 tiers in terms of the bubble. So I have probably will make it, should make it, who knows, and probably won't make it. So you had Sacramento in your bubble. I don't, so I'm not including them. So my probably won't make it are the teams that you said in Memphis and the Clippers, teams that are performing okay for now, but I don't see them finishing. I don't see them there. They're my probably won't make it. My who knows is the Spurs and the Minnesota Timberwolves for various reasons. And then my should make it are Houston, OKC, and Lakers, all who are struggling to certain varying degrees so far.
Where do you have Memphis right now?
Memphis I have and probably won't make it.
Why not?
Because I don't think they're good. I don't think that their wins are substantial. I don't think that their stars can sustain long health for a long period of time. I don't think they have the necessary coaching to reach there.
Established himself as back.
Yeah.
He's playing well.
He's playing like okay.
Low-key, Uncle Mike's favorite player, Mike Conley, but he
Well,
always gets hurt.
He's not my favorite player by any means, but he's one of my favorite players.
I mean, the rest of that rotation is really, really murky. It's really confusing. The players.
Houston's.
Yeah, but Houston has at least a reputation of their core being an elite team, and they've had maintained continuity with their coaching staff as well. I don't like Bickerstaff. I don't think he's a bottom tier coach in the league, and I think that their lack of success from their role players so far is kind of reflected in that. Kyle Anderson was supposed to be an exciting splash acquisition in the offseason. He has really, really declined in terms of what his expected value was. Dylan Brooks played the most minutes out of any rookie last year. He's been terrible to start this season. Jaren Jackson has been completely up and down. We'll talk about him more later, but more down than up, exactly. I mean, yes, Conley has played well, but you expect that. Gasol hasn't been an all-star caliber player.
They were a playoff team before Conley got hurt.
Right.
Now he's back.
Right.
And so why not?
Because I think there's too many other good teams, and I think that the rest of their roster and coaching staff doesn't align with a playoff roster in comparison to
the Lakers are better than them. I don't think Minnesota's better than them. I'm not sure that New Orleans or the Clippers are better than them.
That's fine. So I put the probably will make. I put Portland and the Pelicans as my probably will make.
Yeah.
I had Portland right teetering and tottering on the 8 and 9 seed. I think I picked them to miss the playoffs in my preseason predictions. But that was just based off of me just looking at their roster. But the more you watch them play, the more that you can tell that this is a team that is very cohesive. They know what each of their roles are. They're very set in terms of their delegation. They have good coaching. They have good up and down talent in terms of each slot. Obviously, they have some pitfalls, but they have solved some issues from former years with some shooting off the bench. I like them a lot. Damian Lillard has been an MVP candidate so far. I think that they're going to accrue enough wins where later in the season, if they do dwindle a little bit, they'll be able to have a big enough cushion where we can see them, a team that was the 3 seed last year, be able to handle even sliding down to maybe the 6 or the 7.
And I would say, why not on Sacramento? I mean, Cauley Stein looks like the real thing to me. DeAndre Fox looks like the real thing to me. Bagley looks like the real thing to me off the bench. I mean, that's starting to get together. They're starting to perform pretty consistently.
It's a little bit too much of a flash in the pan for me. I mean, De'Aaron Fox is incredible, and I think he has all-star future in his eyes, absolutely. And I think he could get there, not this year, but I think he can get there. But the rest of that roster is a complete hodgepodge, and they do have the worst coach in the league. I think that they're playing well because their pace is so intense and because of that initial emphasis to start the year was so fortuitous for them in terms of the how much pace mattered, how much being able to score in a quick manner mattered. They were able to capitalize on that.
And there's so much rust in the rest of the league too.
Exactly.
If you're a young athletic team, you can run and gun and you can beat those rusty teams early on. But in 4 months, Sacramento's going to be getting blown out.
I mean,
I'll give you 10-1 odds on Sacramento not sniffing the playoffs.
But they could be still getting blown out, and they could be one of the top 8 teams. I'm not seeing that.
Fun to watch is different from playoff contention.
Yeah, Sacramento isn't going to be in the playoffs. I mean, they have competitive wins against average teams. I mean, they beat the Miami team without any healthy players on their roster. They beat a couple more teams that we're considering not even in playoff contention. I like them. They're exciting to watch. They aren't a playoff team. I think more teams that deserve consideration for whether or not they will be in the playoffs are the players in this middle tier. Can we all agree that we know Golden State's in there? Does everyone have Denver as a lock? Denver's a lock. I think that
they could be the 2 seed.
I think they have a 2 seed. I had them as the 3, but from what we've seen from Houston, they clearly are rising to be that second strongest team in that conference. And although Utah's record doesn't reflect it, right now they're around the 9. I think that I've seen enough from them to be able to put them in as well. Do you guys agree with that?
My other lock, I'm not going to expect complete agreement on, is San Antonio.
That's fine.
I think San Antonio's a lock.
That's one of my off the bubble teams. I have them close to the bubble but not making it. They just got trampled by the Orlando Magic.
Sure.
And
Portland got beat at home by the Lakers.
Popovich just looked incensed. He almost looked like he was bewildered by what was happening out there.
It was a back-to-back.
So
for what that means, it was a back-to-back.
And I understand a back-to-back, but I just think the loss of DeJounte Murray is going to be hard for them to ever get past. And I think that a team with DeMar DeRozan as the centerpiece of the team.
Aldridge is the centerpiece.
They're both the centerpiece. They're both
so
the
that gives them 2 centerpieces.
Aldridge
they had a game last week where I believe they shot something ridiculous, 23 for 27, the two of them together, or 25 for 30
I love LaMarcus Aldridge, but I just don't think that
thought you liked DeRozan
duo.
He's averaging 27 a game.
I think he's a really talented player, but I just don't think it's going to equate to wins in the Western Conference.
Is not as cliche. He's not chopped liver either. Rudy Gay's a decent player.
Their wins so far have come against opening night against the deranged Timberwolves team with the complete mounting disarrangement between Butler and Towns and the rest of that organization. They've got back-to-back, or not back-to-back, but they had 2 wins against the Los Angeles Lakers, who are clearly struggling in terms of their chemistry issues, and they got gifted one of the wins with LeBron missing free throws in the final seconds. And their other wins are coming against the Mavericks, which are a struggling lottery-bound team, the Suns, a struggling lottery-bound team, and the Pelicans without Anthony Davis. I don't think that their wins are substantial at all. They have a bad loss to the Orlando Magic, which are a really cruddy team, and they got blown out by.
You just named 5 teams that they beat, so they're better than those 5 teams. So it's not the.
Yeah, but I don't think they are better than the Minnesota Timberwolves if Jimmy Butler is starting to mesh properly. And regardless, they could be better than that team. That doesn't matter. I don't think they are better than the Lakers once the Lakers start to figure out all the kinks and gears of their offense. Yeah.
Right now they are.
Well, I think they're better than Minnesota, but I have Minnesota out of the playoffs too.
Right.
Because
The point is that they probably, like, what they're performing as now and the teams that they're beating now is irrelevant. They haven't played a team that we have locked in the playoffs. They haven't played a Houston, an OKC. They haven't played a Denver, a Utah, a Golden State.
Houston
They haven't
and
played
OKC
the.
not winning games, so they could just as well. I'm not afraid. The only team in that whole thing, and I'll give Denver the benefit of the doubt, is Golden State. I mean, other than that, I don't see a whole lot of difference between those teams. Maybe Utah, and Utah's not winning games right now. But Golden State's it, and then Denver looks like they are to me, and I'll be looking forward to seeing them. They're playing tonight, right?
We play the Boston Celtics.
And I'm
play
really
Denver
going to be
tonight.
watching
It's a tough
Jokic,
game.
right?
It's a tough game for
because there's a little disagreement with us on how good Jokic is. And
Jokic
I want to see him.
It's so great to watch him play because he really doesn't have to score points. He can have a game where he scores 10 points, but he's responsible for 40 points.
Yes.
Because he just makes so many great passes, and he's got a lot of great hockey assists too. You know, two pass assists where they're swinging it around. They play so well together.
They look great.
Just touching back on Minnesota, I was watching a little bit of the Minnesota-Portland game, and Portland out-rebounded them 66-38.
That's decisive.
Like, nobody in Minnesota goes for rebounds. You've got Karl Anthony Towns. He's out there most of the game. He's got 5 rebounds, and he missed 10 shots. And Lillard had a kind of like a mediocre game for him. He missed 10 shots as well, but at least Lillard had 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's making things happen out there. Minnesota, they don't really know what they are right now, and Cat is just a real letdown.
But Cat has played better. I mean, he had a 28-point game. He had a 26-point game.
I think in both of those games he was still clearly out of rhythm, though. I think he's struggling to return
You
to
know,
what his
my
identity
theory
should be.
on that team is my theory on that team, and I don't know what he can actually do. So I'm looking at this across the league that there's some teams that I think got to get rid of very high-profile players, and I don't see why they don't keep Butler and get rid of Towns and Wiggins. Can they even do that? Is there a market out there for those guys where they would build that team from Butler forward, take away Towns and Wiggins, and support what they got now?
They've hitched their wagon to Karl Anthony Towns.
I think selling on him would be way, way, way too short-sighted. I think that he's a young superstar.
And there's no way
He's
you're
a
going to get
young
enough
superstar.
back.
Yeah. I think that Minnesota is going to be on the outside looking in. I think that it's fair to say that the Clippers are on the outside looking in. You disagree, but I think it's fair to say that the Memphis Grizzlies will be on the outside looking in. The teams that, which out of these 5, Houston, OKC, Lakers, Pelicans, and Spurs, are you most confident about making? Because only 4 of those 5 are going to make it.
Well, so which one? So
I'm most confident that it will be missed.
that will miss that?
Yeah.
The Lakers.
Say them again? Yeah, I think that's where I am.
Houston, OKC, Lakers, Pelicans, Spurs.
Pelicans.
So is that attached to Anthony Davis's health, or is that just because you're seeing things there that you're nervous about?
Just coming to my head as my opinion is I think they're asking Anthony Davis to do too much on that team.
Yeah.
And that when they are without him, like you're saying, the team. So I don't know how Meritic might be a mirage a little bit. I think they've got weaknesses. Moore is a little bit of a weakness. Their bench obviously still is a weakness. So they're asking Anthony Davis to he's the aircraft carrier, and I'm not sure that that's going to work for them. So I think the Lakers. Did they get Chandler? Did they sign Chandler?
Who?
They're going
Tyson Chandler
to.
the Lakers.
Yeah,
Lakers got
Suns.
So that's what you said should happen.
buyout
They should get a
happened,
big.
so.
Yeah. I just think that I think that the Pelicans are going to be in because I think that Anthony Davis will play enough games to be able to land them in that 7-8
So which team
area.
do you think is not going to make it?
I think it's going to be the Spurs.
Spurs,
I think it's going to because of the surmounting injuries in their backcourt. I think because of their over dependence. No, they're not. I think their over dependence on 2 high usage, low efficiency players in DeRozan and Aldridge that both really struggle on the defensive end of the floor. This team is a really, really cruddy defensive team. They're a terrible defensive team, and that's something that's farly different from what we've seen in year after year after year after year of Spurs past. This team is always a team that's defensively strong, that can handle themselves no matter what, and always beats down the weak teams and then steals a couple games against the better teams. We've already seen all of those things that were preconceived notions about the San Antonio Spurs not ring true. And I think that is a reason to be nervous. And I think that the Popovich is obviously the main reason to believe in them to make the playoffs, and them making the playoffs wouldn't be crazy, but I think attaching their season to both DeRozan and Aldridge, I think, will be the bane of them being able to get there. to the
Yeah,
next step.
I think in the
agree with that
West,
at all.
I think in the West you need good point guard play, you need good perimeter defense, and you need to rebound. And I think San Antonio is going to struggle with all three down the stretch.
Yes.
And I think you're asking Patty Mills to do too much for that
Maybe,
team.
but to say that you don't expect Aldridge and DeRozan to perform is wrong. DeRozan and Aldridge are going to perform, and they're going to perform at a very all-star level. They are.
Yeah, I think that's the point, though. Like you're having these guys are going to come in, and you're going to have to depend on them to perform. But the manner that they're performing isn't going to add up to enough winning basketball for them to make the playoffs. I think that you're going to depend on these guys are going to go out there. DeRozan is going to get you 26, 5 and 5 every night, and Aldridge is going to get you 24 and 10. But it's not going to matter because it's going to come in low efficiency.
It has
it's going
mattered
to
so far. I know you don't like that competition, but let's look at 10 games.
But you need a lot more than a duo.
10 games from now.
You need depth.
I think Rudy Gay's a decent player.
I think Rudy Gay is a great, like, sixth best player on a team.
I think you need
not
a
a
lot
bad
of
third
depth
addition
in the
on the
West. And I don't think the Rockets have that much depth this year. I don't think the Lakers
Rockets
do.
have horrible
I don't think
depth.
the
Their
Spurs
bench is
do.
The Rockets are a very interesting test case. The only reason I have them in here because everything we've seen so far from them is that they shouldn't be a playoff team. But the only reason I have them in there is because of what we know that their best three players, when they play together, they play at a very high level. And Harden, Paul, and Capella have not played many games so far yet this season. And throughout the entirety of the season, both Paul and James Harden a little bit less so, but the two of those guys together are very high efficiency scorers, specifically in terms of being able to get to the free throw line, hitting that at a high clip. Chris Paul shooting a very high percentage from the field, and Harden being able to get high efficiency shots. Both these guys have struggled from both of those areas. Both are shooting below 80% from the free throw, and both are shooting below 35.
Can we parlay it right into the fix it?
Yeah, you can probably ready to fix it because it was borderline. It was borderline there already. So
because Houston is scoring, and they're also like you said, they're not shooting well, but their ISO game is still best in the league.
Yes,
they're scoring 1.2 points every ISO play that they run, which is like in today's NBA,
so that's
a good
thing. Harden and Paul playing together at the same time is the key. But their Achilles heel is their defense.
Yes, absolutely.
And that defense, I mean, it's gone. It was. I don't know. Under D'Antoni, I don't expect a tremendous defensive team. Last year it was a pretty good defensive team.
Right.
When the guys that they're missing and the guys
it was really good. Last year was a really good defensive team.
That's going to be hard to overcome.
The ways that it's completely different is last year we were very aware of the losses that they have in Ariza and Mbamute, and those players, they're not being able to retain them. One for Mbamute probably not being the same player that he was last year, and the other for Ariza getting paid too high of a dollar amount for them to be able to retain him. But there was also a third factor in that is that their defensive coordinator or coach or whatever, Jeff Bzdelik, he retired in the beginning of the season, but there's recent information that came out today that he's going to be coming back to the team. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how he motivates a defensive culture that this team doesn't have the pieces to be able to enact.
I don't think so.
Last year they had one of the best switching schemes in the entire NBA. They were switched 1 through 5, and the only disadvantage was if you got Harden out on the perimeter with a great ball handler. Even if you got Harden in the low in the post, that's where Harden is strongest as a defender. And they had so many lineups last year where Harden was the only person who had any defensive weaknesses. Now we're seeing lineups where Chris Paul and Capella are the only good defenders that they have. We're seeing Eric Gordon take a step back defensively. We're seeing James Harden, maybe it's because of health, but he looks a step slower defensively, which isn't a good sign. This team is going to struggle defensively and needs to depend on their offense. And as I just said, their offense hasn't been as efficient as we are formally expecting it to be.
And you have teams that they're coming into their house and they're as soon as they put Carmelo Anthony on the floor, they are targeting him.
That's bad.
They are targeting him, and they are smoking him. He can't play defense to save his life. He can still play a little bit of offense, but they are just such a blatant issue
and I think
from perimeter defense.
That is, he's a cancer.
No, it looks horrible.
And so he's been a cancer, and
every analyst
everywhere he's been, but
every analyst across the NBA is saying
it.
He stinks.
And Sloan pointed out last week, Chris Paul buys into him, lock, stock, and barrel, which is also not good for the team. No. But other than the defense, that bench, I mean, the Boston Celtics bench would beat them by 50.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would beat that bench by 50.
I mean, Michael Carter-Williams is perennially miserable.
And Chris and Gary Clark and Gerald Green, name me if Gordon's going to start, they have no bench.
No,
and also they're bottom 5 in the league in rebounding. Yeah. So if you're going to shoot the way that they're shooting from outside, and not rebound at all. Clint Capella, in certain games this year, he's looked lost.
No.
His interior offense is awful, and he's not rebounding. That's not what they paid him
He hasn't
for.
he hasn't taken the step that we were expecting of a young center that had just got paid.
Total letdown.
I still think this team will regress positively. I think that their shooting will regress positively. If you look at their expected field goal percentage on the shots that they're taking in comparison to their actual field goal percentage, there's a big disparity. I think that this team is bound for a bounce back. I mean, they're only 3-5. It's not terrible, and I have them as a should make it. I think they're going to be a playoff team. It's just where they land.
It's just sad
in
at the
that
last
mix.
year
Yeah,
that
it's
when
so
we
unusual.
talked about their wins.
Well, I mean,
potential
last
and
year
everything.
when we looked at that team with a macro perspective, we were saying the things that now we're nervous about, and it's just that we were surprised because they had a defense, and we weren't expecting them to have a defense, but they did.
Yep.
And now we're seeing the team that we formerly expected them to be, and they're going to struggle to do it. And I think they need Harden to return to close to MVP level to be a home court team in the
And they need
playoffs.
Chris Paul to stay healthy, so those guys can play. Right now, Harden's played 5 games. How many games? Maybe 2 games together that they played.
Right. The
And that
three
was
of them
same
played 2 games
and that
together.
was the same-
They need Jimmy buckets. They need Butler.
That's
so
my number one list.
bad.
That's my number one on the list.
Like if you're gonna fix that team, like I would almost give up. At this point, even though PJ Tucker has been like one of their more aggressive players, like I would give up Tucker, Gordon, and 2 firsts.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't
That's
know.
a long
I
way
don't-
from the 4 firsts that they offered.
But Jimmy Butler is just.
Well, and he is. And why would Minnesota want to get? I mean, if they can hold on, that's why I'm saying, why can't they shape the way he played last night? I mean, he played awesome last night, Butler, right?
Yeah, he's good. He's a top 15 player in the league, and I think that
Which I wouldn't have said before.
absolutely-
2 nights ago. Last night he sat for rest again.
Right.
didn't
He absolutely solves their issues. If you plug him in a nucleus that has 3 players on the floor being himself, Capella, and Chris Paul, all of a sudden your defensive woes will become a little bit alleviated.
Yes.
And I think that he is absolutely the fix-it for that team. All right, let's move to some other fix-it because we just
Okay.
moved over.
Yeah.
Would you guys rather fix the Wizards or the Cavaliers first?
I want to fix the Wizards because they're so bad.
Let's fix the Wizards then.
So
So they're 2-7 so
They're
far.
all challenges, the fixes here.
Yes, they're 2-7. Their team has obviously showcased the worst chemistry in the league. They have perennially, but every single game they have the worst body language from their stars, and their bench and role players have continued to not perform up to the manner of their expected abilities. There have been bright spots. They had a good victory over the Portland Trailblazers in the beginning of the season, an overtime win. And once Dwight came back in the past 2 games, they looked a little bit better in terms of rebounding,
Talk about body language,
as
Trey.
expected. But there's still a lot of reasons to be nervous. Wall isn't the same lightning rod that he has been in years past. Bradley Beal's temperament is willing to. You got to question it to a
I was
degree.
surprised that I heard that he took the whiteboard off the coach and drew his own play during the huddle. I didn't think Beal was that kind of a personality.
Yeah.
I was surprised at that.
I don't. Scott
That shows you what
Brooks.
Scott Brooks is.
I don't like that they're claiming that he is clear and he's going to be clear of any potential fryer. I think
the players are trying to get him
I
fired.
think that's
when they
the
came
first
out and they
answer.
reinforced the notion that he's there to stay,
Yes.
I think the players since then have been like, what do we have to do to get this guy out of
I
here?
watched the.
I think they hate him.
I watched the
think they hate him
OKC on Washington game.
Yes.
And I was surprised I stayed with the whole game and watched the whole thing.
surprised you
because
did
it was,
too.
Well, it was intriguing. One thing I would say about that is that this fast pace, it's a lot easier watching horrible games now because
Yes, it is.
it's moving so good and there's so
It is.
many shots and it's the transition that's going. I mean, rather than seeing 90 to 67 to see 130 to 111, it's a lot more enjoyable.
Right.
But anyways, that team, some of the worst body language I've ever seen was Dwight Howard.
Absolutely.
Was Dwight Howard. He hits his first 5 shots of the game, they take a lead, and you could tell his attitude was, just play like me and we're all set. And that's how he played up the whole. When they were down by 30, he still had the same attitude towards those players, like, just follow me and we'll be all set. You got to be kidding me.
I also-
and I thought Adams played his steady game, and it was like the tortoise and the hare. Whereas time went on in that game, it was Adams, boom, boom,
Well,
boom.
Adams is everything that the Wizards are not. You know, they're a bottom. No team gives up more points than the Wizards do right now, and they don't rebound the ball. So Dwight Howard coming in, it's kind of feeding into his
It's awful.
ego. Like I'm helping you.
It's the
so
worst thing
much.
that happened to that team.
Yeah.
A team with with bad body language to bring Dwight Howard.
Well,
in.
it's
they-
weird.
How do you get rid of him?
It's weird because they don't want to get rid of him. They need him.
They gotta get rid of him.
They need him.
Yeah, but
if you look
here's
at this,
another one.
if
I'll
you
say
look
the
at the
same thing I
team
said with
before
Tom.
Dwight came back and when Dwight came back, they look dramatically
No,
better.
they
when
don't
Dwight
need
was
him.
They
there.
can't
They're
succeed
better off
without a
with
big
him.
man.
They're better, just like the Houston's better off with Carmelo Anthony gone. Give him a job off the court or something. Same thing with Dwight Howard.
But Dwight can actually rebound and he can protect the rim. I understand his temperament is terrible and his body language is bad.
And you tell me where they can do this too. I say trade Wall. Trade Wall and bring something in that supports it and makes it so they don't have to play. And I think this is a fact. The fact is that Oubre, Otto Porter, and Satoransky and Morris, that combination played the best ball, and they all play the best together when Wall is out. Just look at their numbers when Wall does not play. Look at Otto Porter's numbers when Wall doesn't play and when he plays. They're substantially different. You get Wall out of there.
Otto's struggling no matter who's on the
Yeah,
floor.
Otto-
No. That's
Yes,
not true.
absolutely.
That's not true.
Otto
That's not
Porter
true.
is-
That's fair.
John Wall changes the way that game flows, and Otto
does.
Porter is no longer the same player with John Wall on the floor.
Otto
And
Porter
if it
is
was
taking
working fine.
three-pointers with 20 seconds on the shot clock with contested
Otto Porter played
with a hand in his
very
face.
good year last year. He'll take a step forward.
Ugh.
He's one of the guys I'm not giving up on. It's Otto Porter.
I know
They've gotta
you're-
get rid
I know
of
you're
John
bullish,
Wall.
but
they
he
got to get rid of John
stinks.
Wall and they got to get rid of Dwight Howard. And Scott Brooks could go too. And I don't know how you do that. But I would say you got to play Satoransky.
Satoransky is good.
Player.
Satoransky is better than Austin
And you got to play
Rivers.
Oubre. I know
Satoransky
they
is better than
started
Austin
Oubre
Rivers.
last game, but you got to play Oubre.
That's the thing that's weird
Morris
about
is okay.
this team is made up of players that when you look at them on a piece of paper, you say, okay, this is
The starting lineup looks solid.
This is a playoff team. They're not a top four.
Not if you know what
if,
Howard's
if you're looking at the roster, this is not a top 4 seed, but they're a playoff team based off talent alone. And I think it has a lot to say about the coach based off of the complete ineptitude he has to have the right rotations and the obvious dismay that players have for one another and the coaching staff in general, that it's not working the way that you would expect it to work. This team is a dumpster fire because of the chemistry. And obviously Dwight Howard adds to that in a negative manner, but he is positively affecting what they fail to do in the basketball side of it. But I think that their answers should be A, fire Scott Brooks, B, blow it up, trade every single person that they have. Trade John Wall, trade Bradley Beal, and trade Otto Porter. Trade everyone.
Nobody's
Look at
taking
Phoenix
Porter.
and Orlando.
You know what Porter's making? His contract is
yes.
crazy.
Yeah, but
Nobody's
couldn't-
taking that
Porter,
off.
I don't have a problem with Porter. I don't have a problem with Gortat. I'd
Porter
rather
is
have,
average-
I'd rather have Gortat than Howard any day.
Por-
Gortat was a teammate. He was a team player.
Yeah, he was a teammate that his teammates
But
disliked.
they need teammates. They get. That's why Satoransky needs to play.
Gortat was calling out the franchise
why can't
players.
they trade with Phoenix or Orlando, who need a point guard so bad? Wouldn't they give up something? Wouldn't they give up Josh Jackson and Ariza for him?
I
Wouldn't they
would.
give up Vukovic and Isaac
I think
for him?
John Well would stunt the development of the Phoenix Suns young.
Well, I don't
young
care, but
nucleus.
I'm just trying to build Washington.
We're trying to fix Washington. I agree. I do think that their quickest way to being fixed is firing Brooks and probably trading John Wall, because I do think that John Wall's his temperament and his demeanor on the court is negatively reflected and echoed through the other players that are having issues on that court. I think that he is an all-star player, but he isn't an all-star mind. And I think that it's struggling, and he continues to be an overconfident player that believes in himself more than he has the right to. I think that he's clearly struggling to impose a good team offense and a good team defense. He's having a great statistical year. He's shooting well more efficiently than he has in the past 2 seasons. And when you watch him play, if you're just looking at his highlights, he looks great. But it's the whole entire encompassing game of him does have a negative effect on the team. I don't think that. I just think it's everything. I think it's murky. Everything is wrong. I think they need to blow everything up. I don't think just getting rid of John Wall will solve it. I don't think just firing Scott Brooks will solve it. I think they need to do several moves.
Jay, I'll take one of your inputs on it. I will take it. It's so desperate. I'd go for Rick Pitino.
Why not? Okay. It's in their defense. This team.
There's no defense. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen a team play. Was that game against OKC?
They barely beat the Knicks yesterday.
I know.
6 for 26 from three-point
In their
line.
defense, their first 2 games of the season were at home. They were both very, very. Those were you could debate. Those were 2 of their better games of the year, even though they lost. They lost by 1 to the Heat, and it was a tight game, and John Wall played great. That was the best game he's played all year. If you go back and watch that, his temperament was good in that game, and his motivation was good in that game. And then you go to the second game, they were at home, and they played the Raptors and Kawhi, and they played great. They played surprisingly okay defense against the Raptors and Kawhi, a team that we know is a dynamite team. They only lost by 3, and they played a good game. And then after that, they went on a 5-game road trip, all against playoff teams. They played the Warriors, they played the Trailblazers, they played the Clippers, they played the Grizzlies, and then there was one other team that wasn't as good, the Kings. The Kings were on a hot stretch, and they lost to all 5 of those other than the Trailblazers when they had that good overtime win. Their schedule has not been fortuitous to them to a winning team because they've really, really been ransacked with travel, with back-to-backs, and with facing tough competition. Obviously, there's a lot here that you need to pay attention and be nervous about, but maybe when their schedule lightens up a little bit, they will come back to earth a little bit more. I still think they're a playoff team, but I think they're probably like a 7 or 8 seed, not a 5, 6 seed contender that I thought they were potentially before.
So a tangent.
Yes.
You guys ever dunk in your dreams?
Yes, all the time.
Oh, man. That's the only time I ever dunk is in my dreams.
Okay.
That OKC game, I saw the dunk in my dreams.
What was it?
It was Westbrook's wake away, go boom off his shoulders and in. It's exactly how I do it in my dreams. It was amazing. That breakaway, the rhythm, it was just flowed so beautifully. Did you watch that dunk?
I did. I saw it. It was very nice.
It wasn't a circus dunk, but it was the exact dunk that I do in my dreams. It was wonderful.
I'm going to think of it
sorry
next time I
about
see
the
a dunk.
tangent,
That's
that
great. It's a
game-
great
Oh,
tangent.
speaking of dunks, who's the new Sean Bradley of the league? He's been playing well, but Yusuf Nurkic got dunked on 2 days in a row.
Brandon Ingram had a nice
The first one was Brandon Ingram,
Left-handed
rim
dunk.
rattling left hand, just
was a nice dunk.
kaboom. And then the next one was it Josh Okogie from Minnesota?
He's looked good.
He had a pretty good dunk on him too.
All
I'm
right,
like, oh, this guy's Sean
before we
Bradley
change,
now.
we'll talk
Oh, yeah,
quickly.
we gotta talk
Let's
Cavs.
fix the Cavs. They're 1-8. I think that this team fixing it is sell. Trade everyone that's a veteran. Get as many picks as you can. Give as much minutes to Chetty, Nance, and Sexton as possible. Tank is fixing it.
Lock J.R. Smith in the ice chest,
Yes.
or ice cooler, or whatever.
I think to a degree they need to remove everything that's poisonous from the situation. But in terms of what's happening on the basketball floor, I think they're doing the right things. Since Ty Lue's firing, they have been playing Sexton and Chetty more minutes.
I disagree completely.
But I think that they need someone who's more able to motivate them properly. They need a better teacher for these young players because the old players clearly disparage these young guys. They don't like the young guys. For some reason, there's some reason for indifference between
I'll
the
tell
two
you
of
the
them.
reason.
What?
Because Sexton can't play.
Sexton
cannot play.
He looks terrible.
He can't play.
He looks terrible.
He can't play.
Yeah.
So why do you want him in the starting lineup? He can't play.
I want him
That's
to-
why George Hill is down on him, because he can't play. So those guys are being forced to play with somebody else that's been shoved down their throats that is not ready to play in the NBA.
No, he's not. He needs a
So
better
he-
veteran that's more willing to motivate
He
him
needs
to be
be
better.
down the bench, and they need to have George Hill as their starting point guard. That's all they got on that team, and they certainly can't be having putting Sexton out there.
because you're talking
And they
from
started the season by playing him too much.
You're talking
They
as if
started-
they can win
Yes,
games,
exactly.
as if there's
You're-
hope now.
you're thinking
Might
about
as well
it-
try to
He's
develop
not a
him.
hope. He's not.
Yes, he
can't-
is. He's
not
the
hopeless.
only hope that
No,
this
he's
team
not.
has.
He can't play, Shay.
How is George Hill more of a hope for the Cleveland Cavaliers than
He's only
Colin
30.
Sexton? He's only 30.
Yeah.
This team's timeline is 6 years down the road.
I'm not
If
waiting
they-
for. I wouldn't let Sexton play another 3 games the way
Okay,
he
but
plays.
that's why you're not a general manager of a team because they
you would
invested.
go with Sexton.
Yes, absolutely.
Shay,
They
you
invested.
agreed with me
have
that
to
he can't
He
develop.
play.
plays horrible so far. He's been terrible.
Why would you go with
Because
him?
it's only been 8 games and you invested in
But if he
top
wasn't
10
terrible,
overall
I'd
pick.
agree with you. But he can't play.
You're looking
not
at all
ten-
wrong.
he's got
You're looking at
potential.
all wrong. He has potential, and you need to be able to invest the right amount of resources into this player that you spent a top 10 overall pick on for validified reasons. And I think he could be a top 10 talent if he was surrounded by the right manner and if he was developed in the right way. Right now, he isn't. Right now, he is being coddled incorrectly. Right now, he is butting heads with everyone around him because no one likes him because they're veterans clearly there.
Why don't they like him, Shay?
Because
He
they're
can't
not
play.
vets. They don't know what their roles are.
George Hill has got a good attitude. Clarkson's got a good attitude. Nancy's got a
Clarkson
good attitude.
has a good attitude. Well, listen to what you're
There's
saying.
not that much wrong with Clarkson.
You're gonna
You
lose
said-
with
you
George
Clarkson's
Hill.
You just said
Clarkson's
you just said
attitude in LA
Jordan
was
Clarkson.
fine. Clarkson's attitude last year, unless you've seen some things over the 5 games this year that are negative with Clarkson. I haven't seen anything bad with Clarkson's attitude.
This team needs to be looking forward, and they need to be selling every piece
I
that
don't-
has value.
you know-
Right now, they need to be emphasizing Chetty, Nance, and Sexton because those are the three
No,
young
no.
hopes on their team. They need to trade
the
Hill.
only
they
mistake
need to
that
trade
Ty
Tristan,
Lue
they need
made,
to trade Kai Love.
the only
Trade Kai Love.
mistake that Ty Lue made was playing J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith was a cancer, just like he makes the chump team with
Yeah,
Howard.
trade him too.
So get Smith out of there, but he should have played Hill and Nance and Clarkson and Hood and Love.
Yeah, Hood should have
and
minutes, I agree.
Thompson. And that team is not that bad.
That team is that bad.
No, it's not.
This team
It
is
is not.
terrible.
It
On
is
paper,
not.
on the court, everywhere.
It is
This
not.
team is a bottom 4 team in the
Give
league.
me the J.R.
and it's
Smith
obvious.
and take Sexton off the floor,
spin it.
and that team is not that bad.
I don't think they're fixable.
You're giving
And,
up
and
on
Love
Sexton.
Love is gone for too long, so it's a moot point because Love is out.
You're giving up on Sexton too early. Big 3.
Big 3. All right. First person to get 2 out of 3 in
Is
2
the
out of
world
3
champion.
categories.
JBJ,
Number
let's
1. Name 2 out of 3 all-time leaders in blocks. We'll start with Uncle Mike.
Dikembe Mutombo.
Dikembe Mutombo is number 2 all-time. Correct.
Hakeem.
Hakeem is number 1 all-time. Uncle
Kareem.
Mike. Kareem is number 3 all-time. Boom. Easy peasy. Another easy one should be there are 4 players this NBA season who have scored 50 points or more. Name 3 of them. First is Shea.
Klay Thompson.
Klay Thompson had 52. He's the leader.
Rose.
Derrick Rose got a 50-pointer.
Blake Griffin.
And Blake Griffin got a 50 or 51?
Just 50.
Steph Curry got
Okay.
51 as well.
Good job. Sean.
How about this one? All-time leaders in technical fouls. Uncle Mike.
Draymond Green.
No.
Rasheed Wallace.
Rasheed Wallace is number
definitely.
3 all-time. 317 techs.
Ooh, that's a record that might be hard to reach.
It's a lot. That's number 3.
That's number 3.
There's 2 ahead of him.
Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley is number 2 all-time. 329 technical fouls.
Rodman.
Rodman is number 5 with 212. So
Wow, that's a good call. You're
we'll
probably
keep
playing
going until we get to number 1.
Wow, I can't believe we can't get number 1 out of
How
this.
recent?
These are the 90s as well. 90s and early 2000s. Got a lot of technicals with Rodman. Power forward.
Oh, Kenny Martin. No, not Kenny Martin. Oh, Charles Oakley.
Nope.
Charles Oakley was what I was going to say.
Played in a couple finals.
Malone.
Karl Malone, number 1.
Karl Malone got the
played
most
forever.
technical fouls.
He's number 1 all-time in technical fouls with 332.
That's too many.
Not mentioned was Gary Payton with 250 in 4th place. So that's a lot of T's.
Too many teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't have think that Malone was
Nobody's ever reaching that again.
Repeat.
East bubble.
Okay, the Eastern Conference bubble is a little bit less dramatic in terms of locks, lottery locks, and on the bubble. My playoff locks, I think you both agree, are Boston, Toronto, Milwaukee, Philly, and Indiana. My lottery locks, I also think you would agree, are Atlanta, Orlando, New York, Chicago, and Cleveland. That leaves the bubble as these 5 teams, and 3 of them will be making the playoffs, and 2 will be headed towards the lottery. These 5 teams are the Brooklyn Nets, the Charlotte Hornets, the Detroit Pistons, the Miami Heat, and the aforementioned Washington Wizards. Just in terms, before I get into detail, the 3 teams that I have making it are the Nets, the Heat, and the Wizards.
The Nets.
Yeah.
Nice.
The more that I look into these teams' wins and losses earlier in the season, the more confident I become in a team like the Nets, and the less confident I become in a team like Detroit. Detroit had a couple good victories. They had a good win against Philly, that overtime game where Blake Griffin had his 50th point on the game-winning layup. That was a good game. And they had a good loss to Boston, and where the first game where Kyrie found his stride,
Right.
where it was 108
Then,
to 105.
then Joel Embiid danced on Drummond's head.
Yes.
And,
But they started 4-0, and they're 0-4 since. And this team is struggling. And listen to this December schedule. This is the first 11 games that the Detroit Pistons play in December. Golden State, Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, Philly, Pelicans, Philly, Charlotte, Boston, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Charlotte.
Jeez.
They might go 2-9.
That's
in that
enough to
stretch.
break them for the whole season.
And I don't think that they're going to recover past that stretch. What I'm seeing from Blake is great, but those first 4 games were wins against teams where their average margin of victory was 4 points, and they were beating the Bulls and the Nets, who I like, but they weren't strong wins. They weren't wins that you could point out in the calendar and say, this is a reason to be confident in this team. And moving forward, I think that Blake's percentages and his shooting splits are going to fall. I think Drummond will continue to be an all-star caliber player, but it's what is in the soup outside of those two ingredients where you really, really got to scratch your head. Obviously, we like Dwayne Casey as a head coach overall. I think he's a good coach.
Well, I haven't been.
But
on
I
his
haven't.
side.
Yeah, I haven't been super impressed with him there. I think he's okay.
I wasn't
think
as
he's
impressed with him at Toronto.
but I don't think that any of the other players that they have there are adding up towards a playoff team. Reggie Jackson is very bad. Their young players haven't taken steps to the next level. Kennard has been dealing with injuries. Reggie Bullock's probably been their third best player.
Yeah.
That's not good to say. And Stanley Johnson hasn't taken a jump, and then they're depending on minutes from like John Lure. So the rest of this team is a huge hodgepodge of borderline rotation players in the league. I think that they finish 5th out of this group of 5.
They take a lot of bad shots there. And Blake Griffin, I think we can all agree, is playing out of his mind.
great.
And there's no way this usage rate is going to continue. No. It's not
Health for that matter.
Yeah, it's not
I think you can play at that level.
It's not a reliable, like, consistent product that they have.
Yeah, I would love to say, and I've been saying this for a couple of years, is just give him a chance. Start Ish Smith over.
Ish Smith is better.
I like
Reggie
Ish Smith.
Ish Smith is
Just
better than
see
Reggie.
how that looks for 5 games, and
You could debate he was their third best player
it's
too.
gonna help. And you know, play Jackson coming off the bench as a scorer or something like that.
No, I agree with you. Makes sense.
That would help. I'm all in. I have been all in on Brooklyn. I just don't know if they really are going to be able to make that step.
I agree.
I really hope they will. One of my favorite players this year, and you know, I'm best. We talk about college basketball, as you know, in University of Virginia. Joe Harris is 30 or 50 from 3.
He looks great.
And he's just knocking them down. He may be one of the most improved players in the league in terms of production.
Well, he's always been doing that. He's always been a high
but
clip,
now
high
he's a starter.
efficiency shooter. I like what
he's
he's doing.
averaging 13 a game, and he's hitting 5-6 threes a game, and I'm pretty impressed with how he's playing. Certainly
Against Philadelphia, Brooklyn outscored Philly 70-40 in the paint.
Yeah, they won 100. They won by 30.
They
won
won
122
aggression.
And you know how many turnovers
Intensity.
Philly had? A league high 28
we talked about
turnovers
that
that
last
game.
week.
scored, what, 40 points off
They're
those
not a
28
good passing team. They're a very bad passing team, Philadelphia.
And Brooklyn knows what to do when they get a turnover. They can produce 2 points like
Brooklyn
that.
brings intensity every night.
This
and
Brooklyn
Atkinson does
team,
that.
this Brooklyn team is very well coached, and they are too deep at
They're
every
not
position.
that talented,
They
though.
don't-
Oh, of
that's-
course.
no,
I think they are.
As far as
think-
a frontline player.
I don't think. Oh yes, okay. So
Karen-
saying they're not talented, I don't think
Well,
is the
they are
right
talented.
is the right
I
is the right
mean-
scope. They just don't have an all-star. They don't have an all-star.
Right.
They have several starters
LeBron
on a
is-
good team.
They got,
have
like-
probably 7 starters on a good team.
I think they got several 2021 All-Stars. That's why it's like you
Yeah,
can
yeah, I
say
agree
they got
with that.
great
Yeah.
bones. They
Not
got
only
Karis,
several, but
LeVert,
Is awesome.
good for sure.
He's fantastic. He's been their best player.
Their center too,
Jared Allen.
Allen.
Yes.
Jared
Not so
Allen
good,
is
yeah.
great.
He's been up and down, but
He's
overall
young. He's really
he's
young
been
and
young,
raw.
and that's where you
He's
see
gonna
his
be a
downs.
great player.
We're with you.
One thing I really liked about that team was that Atkinson benched D'Angelo Russell for a whole game virtually.
yeah.
And then came back, and D'Angelo Russell played really
And he
well.
played great.
So that when Dinwiddie, Russell, and LeVert, they've got that guard position covered very, very strongly. And Atkinson is playing those guards. And then they got Harris as the shooter off those guys.
Like I said, they're literally too deep at every position. They have Karis LeVert. They have Joe Harris at the 2. They have both Dinwiddie and Russell. They have Hollis Jefferson is coming back from injury. He had a great game
Carroll's a
last
hard
game.
player.
DeMar
Not that
Carroll he's a good backup at the 3. I mean, I'm not a
allows
huge
Jackson
Carroll.
I would love to go see that team play when I go up to New York
Yes.
City. I'd love to get a
Well,
ticket to go see that
Ed
play.
Davis is a great backup
Ed Davis
center.
is a great. We said that when he was in Portland. Let him go. We said he would be
This
good.
team is interesting, and they are competitive, and they're
I'm
going to
not.
try hard every night.
I hope they do.
They had a very impressive win, as you said, against Philadelphia, where they completely shellacked them, and they had a good win against Detroit as well.
But they have crushing defeats.
They've
And
only
lose
had
to the-
one.
Did they lose to the Knicks?
They've only had one, and it was to the Knicks. It was a good Knicks, but it was when Tim Hardaway Jr. absolutely lost his mind and went nuclear. But all of their other games have been competitive, and their losses are strong losses. They lost by like 4 to Houston. They lost by 2 to New Orleans with Anthony Davis.
Yep.
And they stuck in a game full length of the game with the Golden State Warriors. They only lost by 5 to the Golden State
What I'm
Warriors.
reading between the lines when I'm reading about the games, because I read the New York Post every day, and they're great sports page. But maybe the best sports page I read is the New York Post, is how the other teams understand what Atkinson is bringing to the floor every night. They know that this team is going to fight them to the end. Similar to how Indiana plays. But,
Exactly. Similar. I would compare them.
I like
Obviously, they don't
Atkinson a
have a
lot.
player like Oladipo, but comparing them to what Indiana was last year is a good bellwether, just in terms of they're going to come into your schedule and you're going to expect them to play hard, but you don't know how. And you don't know who's going to be the best player on their team, and you don't know how to defend
Atkinson's
them.
gonna manage it.
And they're tough to scheme against because they're well coached and because they're deep in terms of their average level of talent.
You're not going to get a knockout punch on them.
Exactly.
You're going to go 12 rounds
Yes,
with
They
them.
got a reason why they don't have an all-star with that Boston trade, and to overcome what they have from the
They
Boston.
look
to get where
great.
they are
They've
right now.
overcome it.
But I think they might still be a 30-win season, and you got to say that's a success for them. It's 30
I
wins. 30 wins does not make.
I have them 8 seed.
I had them 8 season before the season. I don't see them falling below 9. I think they're either the 8 or the 9. I think it's going to be either them or Charlotte. To transition over to Charlotte, Charlotte is a real mixed bag.
they are.
And I think that their season is completely dependent on what they do with Kemba Walker. And I do think that this is a team that you need to pay attention to when January and February comes around. If they have a below 500 record or a right around 500 record where they have losses against bad teams, I think Kemba could be on his way out. Kemba loves Charlotte, and Charlotte loves Kemba. But this team needs to realize that he is their only asset that has any value on the trade market. And they do have young pieces right now with Miles Bridges, who has been quiet but good. Okay overall. Malik Monk, who's been a spark plug off the bench, he's been good.
Shooting well.
But the rest of that team, there's no one else on that team to get excited about. Marvin Williams is the most pedestrian player in the NBA. Jeremy Lamb isn't a player that you should be starting a lot of games.
I rate him higher than you do.
I think he's okay. He's okay. And then,
that team is
and,
good.
and then their center rotation is a complete hodgepodge between Hernan Gomez, Bismack Biyombo, and Frank Kaminsky, which is terrible. I've actually liked the minutes where Michael Kidd-Gilchrist has been at center the best out of all their teams.
And he's small.
I think I have this team out of the playoffs. I have this team at the 9, and where I could see them to overtake Brooklyn for the 8 is if Kemba stayed there long term and motivated their team to 40 wins. I think that I don't think they have a ceiling above a 500 team. I think the bottom of the East is going to be right at 40, 39, and I think that this team is going to teeter around that range and could absolutely plummet if they do decide to move Kemba.
I think it's actually startling the disparity between the top 5 teams and everybody else in that division.
Yes,
It's top 5
it's dramatic.
And then everybody
It's dramatic.
else is. And then you look at the West, and it's not like that.
No,
at
it's
all.
weird.
But the West doesn't have the top upper tier that the East has.
No, the top 5 in the East is very clear and it's very obvious and
clear.
it's very competitive. And all those teams are going to be tough outs in the playoffs.
What's wild to me is that right now it doesn't even look close. Like it looks like Milwaukee and Toronto are so clearly the 2 best teams in the East. I mean, it's just.
Don't sell the Celtics short.
I'm not trying to sell them completely short, but like it's just these teams have come out of the gate so strong, and Budenholzer just really has established such an identity for that Milwaukee team, and they're just shooting the lights out
They're a
too.
challenge. They're a challenge for the challenge for the Celtics, obviously.
Hopefully they're overperforming because that's going to be a
Those
tough
5
team.
teams are interesting. Just to close it out with this bubble, the Miami Heat, I think that we don't have
They're
enough.
clearly the team that's going to make it.
I don't know if they're clearly the team that's going to make it,
Out
but
of
I
those
do.
teams,
I do have them higher than the other teams. I think that they're going to be competing with the Wizards for the team that's going to get the 6th seed. I think that they're probably going to be the 6th seed, and what we've seen from them is unusual because they haven't been healthy at all. And they've been missing games from so many players that are rotation players in their lineup. They've missing games from James Johnson. He hasn't played yet. Missing games from Dion Waiters. Say what you want about him. Missing games from Dragic. Missing games from Ellington. Missing games from Justice Winslow. Missing games from Whiteside. Those are all players that are dramatic contributors in their rotation, and we're yet to see them complete as a team. So I think that's why they make sense as a team that probably will slot in. They have good wins against Portland. They had a kind of a struggle of a win on opening night against Washington when Washington actually played well. So I do credit them with a good win there. But Josh Richardson has been their only player that's been consistent, whether it's health or other thing. But I think that you can confidently say that it's the playoff team.
So, in a nutshell, what you're saying about Washington is winning will solve everything? if they start to win, they're going to be all right because the chemistry is so bad, and Brooks is in
Yeah,
such
but
a
like,
bad way with that team.
I don't think the chemistry is going to change.
It'll be okay.
I don't think.
But if the
I think
chemistry
okay.
doesn't change, I can't see how.
I don't
that
think.
team
I think okay is very subjective. I think that they're gonna. I think that they are going to win in spite of the chemistry, more or less. Let's move on. We don't have a lot left.
Time flies.
That's right. That's
And
how
we
it
got
goes.
other things to talk about. I love some of the other things.
All right, let's go real quick with the rookie check-in. My top rookies remain Luka Doncic as the best rookie, DeAndre Ayton as the second best rookie, and then I have Trae Young as the third best rookie. I formerly had Shea up there, but Trae Young's been really impressive. He's averaging close to 20 and 8 a game.
His shooting percentage
and
low.
His shooting percentage isn't that low. He's shooting over 45 a game, and he's shooting high efficiency shots.
I guess he's having good games and bad games.
He does. That's his complete storybook. He's going to have games where he shoots 29. He's going to have games where he shoots 50. He's a really exciting player. He makes the Hawks worth watching. I think he's great. And then the other players that I broke it down into like the good, the surprising, the quiet, and the bad. And then there was another tier that's like hurt and not enough, and that's where I put like MPJ and Zaire and Lonnie and Knox. But the good are those players I just said there, in addition with Shea, Wendell, and Bagley. I think we've seen signs from all of those 6 guys where they've proven that they can play at this level. Players that I've been surprised with that maybe went later in the draft that shot up the charts. I like what I'm seeing from Okogie. I like what I'm seeing from Kevin Huerter. I like what I'm seeing from Mitchell Robinson. And I like what I'm seeing from Dante DiVincenzo.
You won't say his name.
Whose name?
Alonzo Trier, you're going to be kidding me. I can't believe you just mentioned Mitchell, but you wouldn't mention Trier.
No, Mitchell's
you
better
are
than him.
really missing on that. And
I'm not missing.
And sometimes I don't know who's the chump, me or you. Honest to God. I mean, he outdueled Doncic down the stretch
No
that
comment.
game. He scored 14 points in the fourth quarter on Doncic's team as they beat Dallas. He's averaging 11 points a game. His coach, when he's playing against Doncic, his quote is, he's yelling to Trier on the court. Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
That sounds like bad coaching.
That
sounds like bad coaching.
He meant take it to Doncic again. Take it to Doncic again. And he scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. He had 23 in the game. How can you not mention his name?
Because
he's a candidate for Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely not.
You are absolutely you're crazy. He's shooting 52%.
You are out of your mind.
He's shooting, that is not, I
He's
just don't
completely
see
out of
why
your
are
mind.
you guys saying this guy?
Because I am
He's
seeing
shooting
him.
52% from the field, 43% from the three.
Were you excited about Trey Burke's explosion from the mid-range
He's
last
much
year?
better than Trey Burke.
Is he?
He's an explosive, he's a dominating offensive player.
Dominating
You
is
got
a crazy dramatic.
Luka and DeAndre
Well, haven't you
playing
seen this
key
guy play?
minutes.
Yes, I've watched
He
every
hasn't
game.
played a bad game yet
Yes,
this
he
year.
has.
No,
He's
he has
had-
not.
he's had
I
two.
think eight or nine are his bad games, and they're coming off the bench. He shoots well every game. He plays hard every game. He can take it to every player who's taking it. I wasn't a big fan before the season.
He's had 2
but
games where he
followed
scored
him
more.
all the way.
He's had 2 games where he scored
But
more.
to mention him, Mitchell Robinson over
Yeah,
him,
who's affecting the game on
Trier's
both
playing
ends of the
much
floor.
Better, and I don't mind that triumvirate at New York is quite. That's if I talk about rookies.
I like
Knox, Mitchell, and Trier, and you got to talk about Trier as one of those 3.
I like Trier as a scorer, a bench scorer. Moving forward, he'll be able to score 13 points a game for the rest of his career. His ceiling is not
he
high.
wasn't drafted.
Yeah,
you don't
for
see
good
that
reason.
as a story.
For
You don't
good
see it
reason.
as a
He's a weak defensive player whose offensive repertoire is limited. And yes, he's a great scorer, but that's it. And that's the book on him, and everyone knows it. And
He's a prototype 6-man energy scorer off the bench.
So I got the same nucleus as you with Doncic, Ayton, and Trae Young, but the guy that you mentioned as one of the fringe surprises is Josh Okogie, because he's among rookies. His 10 points per game is 8th among rookies. He's got 5 boards a game, and he leads all rookies in steals. He's got 1.7 steals
Great
a game.
defender. Great
so
defender.
he's proven to be a real steal at pick number 20. He's playing on both sides of the court really aggressively, and he's one of the bright spots in Minnesota in an otherwise dismal
he fit
franchise.
in. He fit in great, and I guess Tibbs was lucky that they landed Okogie because Okogie's style matches Tibbs' mindset in terms of what he wants from his players. So he plays hard, and that's going to get him minutes. And he's in the minutes that he's played over 30-something a game because of the Tibbs' style. He has flourished, and he's played great defense against great offensive players. In the game with the Warriors, they were in that game up until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Okogie was playing very, very good defense on Klay Thompson throughout the entirety of that game. His offense, it comes in spurts, but I do like what he has overall. I think he's someone that absolutely should pay attention to. Okogie is eons further along than a player like Alonzo Trier is.
Somebody that I think is having an impact that I'm surprised about is Mikal Bridges. I think he's played well. He's only playing 17 minutes a game. He's averaging 7 points and he's shooting 42% from the three. And he's on an upside at that 17 minutes. I think he's going to contribute there. That's Memphis, right?
Yeah. So, no, Mikal is on Phoenix.
He's on Phoenix.
Yeah. So in my quiet section.
Well, he's better than the guy that's on Memphis, Josh, I think.
Jaren Jackson?
Jaren Jackson.
Maybe.
He's better than I thought he was going to be.
In my quiet section, just the rookies that haven't really shown out that much, I have Jaren Jackson, I have Bamba, and then I have both of the Bridges. I have Miles and Mikal there. Mikal hasn't been able to see the floor a lot, and that makes me a little nervous based off of the rotation and how spotty it is. He had a great game where he performed real clutch against the Grizzlies, actually, where he brought them back into that game. Him and Devin Booker both shot real red hot, and I think that the more confidence he builds, the better he's going to play. I like him, but he has been quiet so far. We said the bad. I think Jerome Robinson has played like 3 minutes. What a terrible pick at 13. But obviously, we talked about him before. The bad is
Bradley and Beverly not playing
Colin
well.
Sexton's bad. He's played very, very bad. He's low efficiency. He can score, but it's to the bane of his team. Do you have any final thoughts on the rookies? Just who do you like watching most?
Well, you heard me. I'm not going to talk about him again.
You like Alonzo Trier most? That's crazy.
Doncic is the most fun for me.
I really enjoy
All right,
watching
let's
him.
throw it and close it out with our prospects. We're just going to go, if you land on that.
I like surprise guys. I like guys
That would
that
be
surprise
amazing.
you.
Yeah. DiVincenzo, great rebounder. I didn't know that about him. All right, so our prospects mock. I wanted to talk about just one player that caught your eye when you're thinking about him and thinking about what you're going to be looking forward to with college basketball right around the corner. When's tip-off? It's this week, right?
This week, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right? Okay.
I think we got Kentucky and Duke both playing big games tomorrow night.
So we've seen exhibition-style games where both Duke and other games have played. Obviously, Duke has the three-headed monster of Barrett, Williamson, and Reddish. The player that I wanted to talk about a little bit who also had an exhibition game was Bol Bol. Bol, 7 foot plus with 7'5" plus wingspan. He came out and he looked really, really interesting in terms of his play style. He looks to compare kind of to a Thon Maker, but kind of like a Chris Stapps. He has presence around the rim, and he has a versatile scoring game. Obviously, he's a little weak right now, and he needs to muscle up, but I think he's a really interesting player. In the weaker end of the draft,
and you didn't like him before.
I'm still not huge on him, but I need to watch more of him because he's caught my attention.
Very aware.
He has.
I got two wing players that I'm just really excited to watch. Nazir Little in North Carolina. He's proven, he was the MVP of the McDonald's All-American game. He can play against anybody. And Quentin Grimes for Kansas. Quentin's maybe a lesser scale.
UVA's got a couple of DeAndre Hunter. Keep your eye on him. We're talking about it a little bit.
Potential
They've got
lottery.
a transfer from Alabama that averaged 13 points a game as a freshman for Alabama. His name's Brandon Key. 6'8", real strong player. And then the third one I would throw is right here, and that's Alpha Diallo at Providence. Watch Alpha Diallo. He's DeRozan that plays defense, and he's very versatile.
The more that we look at this draft class, I think the more that there's those three guys. And then Nazir Little, I think they're head and shoulders above everyone else. It's a top four.
Duke guys.
It's the three Duke guys and Nazir Little.
Don't forget
I think it's a top. I think it's a top four, and I think there's a big drop off.
No, I think Romeo Langford's right up there.
I like Langford. He's an athletic shooting guard. He kind of reminds me of like somewhere between Rip Hamilton and Avery Bradley almost. I like his offensive game. I like his offensive game, and he has some aggressiveness on defense as well. I think he's going to be interesting, but I still think that he is several tiers below that top four. Those top four players have huge upside in the NBA, and I don't think any player past that does. I think that there could be good players that develop.
Potentially R.J. Barrett, but...
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson,
right in there.
Barrett, Williamson, Reddish, and Little, I think all have all-star potential in the NBA, but then after that, I think it's a huge drop-off, and I think that the rest of this draft class is going to be weak. I mean, maybe there'll be a player...
I wouldn't mind having Bol at number 5.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Bol might be
I wouldn't mind having DeAndre Hunter at number 6.
Bol might be the 5th best player in the class,
I wouldn't
and
have Romeo Sanford.
That's why if Charlotte trades Kemba Walker, it's going to be like to a team that they know they can get a good pick from.
So the reason why it's really interesting is because the Boston Celtics have potentially 4 first-round picks this year, and I don't think
that's why you don't want Sacramento to play well.
No, I want Sacramento to be bad. What do you mean?
Yes, that's what I mean. I shouldn't be either. I shouldn't be just talking highly about them.
Other than Sacramento, we have the Clippers and the Memphis potential picks. Both of those
this
picks,
year?
yes, potentially. Both of those picks would be close to around the 10 range, which to me looks like it's going to be a weak spot. So hopefully, if we land those picks, I think we should trade them Some other players to pay attention to. I like what I'm seeing from Nazarian Reed and LSU. He's a big guy who's mobile.
Yes.
And then Gafford, a returning player on Arkansas center.
How about the
Daniel
Kansas
Gafford,
guys?
he's a big guy. And then the big man's forward swing, Rui Hachimura on Gonzaga. He's going to be an interesting player to watch. But overall, it's a really interesting class. The top is obviously top heavy, but we wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we saw Trae Young last year. There are players that rise
I
up.
think you should have wore your hoodie up today in honor of Bo Bob.
Boban?
Bo Bob. Bob Williams, Bo Williams. I'm
Bo.
calling him Bo Bob.
Big Bo.
His hoodie never came off.
No, he looks great in the main red class. He had like 13 and 13 with like 5 blocks.
And they got him up at
Sweet.
4 o'clock in the morning to fly off.
He's doing great. Don't sleep on him. Bo. All right, thank you for joining my Wheelhouse. Until next time.
Good day.
Can't slow down.